While I don't remember a ton about the first Extraction movie, the one thing I definitely remember is that crazy 10 plus minute one shot action sequence. And now that we've got the sequel coming out, will it double down on the action? After barely surviving the events of the first movie, Tyler Rake is back, tasked with another deadly mission, rescuing the battered family of a ruthless Georgian gangster from the prison where they're being held. Chris Hemsworth returns, and this movie picks up right where the first one left off, which is good because it shows us how Tyler Rake was able to survive the insane injuries that he sustained. So while recuperating, he's visited by a mysterious figure who hires him for a task. And of course, Rake is going to take the job. I mean, otherwise we just don't get a movie. The action in this is just about non-stop. It is crazy high adrenaline, spiked with crack, to then deliver intense and anxiety-ridden action sequences. Now, at one point, the story felt a little like a John Wick movie in the way that Wick moves from one violent scenario to another with barely any rest in between. And the same goes for Rake. His mission begins, and then over the course of maybe like 48 hours, all hell is unleashed and chaos reigns. A lot of the fighting contains some quick-cut edits, but thankfully, some of the time, we get to see action for more than a second before the angles are switched. There is also an insane amount of gunfire in the movie. It's almost non-stop. I mean, even when characters are battling it out hand-to-hand, a gun will almost always pop into the situation, making the violent interaction even more so. And the way they film the gunfights, I thought was very thrilling. There are definite conveniences, though, put into place that allow characters to survive certain situations and injuries that really should have ended them. But that's also some of the fun. I mean, I'm not saying that everybody is immune to peril. There are situations that could very well make you hold your breath because the suspense just keeps ratcheting up and up. Now, there's a scene that takes place on a high-rise building, and I was gripped by what the characters were facing. There's also a battle in a very crowded space with threats just coming from every angle, and the characters have to somehow make it out alive. Well, I mean, at least we hope they will. Now, the story itself is extremely simple. Bad guy has his family in prison with him, supposedly to protect them, but he's terrible, so Rake is sent to get the family out of the danger of the prison. And in the course of the rescue, the bad guy's brother joins the fight against Rake, and then it becomes a chase, just leaving monster destruction everywhere. And just like in the first movie, this sequel contains a very long one-shot sequence. And this one somehow improves on what they do. The sequence begins with a toy making some noise, and then it ends in an explosive situation. But along that, there are over 20 minutes of non-cutting action. I mean, I was enthralled at how the camera would change positions and locations, transferring from bridges to cars below, and then onto moving vehicles, and then in and out of melees. This was always keeping us right in the middle of the fray, and it's immersive and gripping. And because there is so much action going on, it's not like mistakes can be made in the filming or the production. I mean, the choreography and movements, they feel chaotically natural, and I really do love the way that this type of storytelling begins to envelop us in the viewing experience. There's not a lot of deep dialogue in this, and really the connection to any characters comes about because some are simply vulnerable and they have no means of protecting themselves, especially from the well-armed thugs. Now, I do like that there are a couple of softer moments that are shared between the characters in somewhat short scenes, but at least these allow us to see a bit of humanity in the heroes who are otherwise just blowing the brains out of just about everybody in their way. Now, the movie is a little over 2 hours, and because of the almost continuous action, the pace is very fast and it makes the time fly by. This isn't a movie that you watch because you're looking for meaningful depth and exquisite character arcs. I mean, you watch to see crap blow up and people duke it out in death-defying situations. Now, something that I really like is that Hemsworth's Rake isn't the only fierce warrior in the story. He has two close teammates who are engaging to watch, and I was able to feel somewhat drawn to them. Nick and Yaz are just excellent characters within the narrative because they seem to always know exactly where to be. I mean, yeah, there is a lot of belief that needs to be suspended, but they're the kind of characters we want to see battle it out. Maybe take a beating and then come roaring back for more, and somehow overcoming any wound they sustain. The level of destruction that is created for this movie is just insane. I mean, there are some times when the story takes place out in the middle of nowhere, so that damage, it's kept to a minimum. But the story also moves into highly populated areas, and that's where it gets crazy. Now, I think it would have been fun to show how bystanders were reacting to all the carnage around them, but that could also have the potential to break the momentum and the energy of a scene by breaking away from the fighting. Rest assured, though, if you want to see explosions, bullets flying, or even people being mangled in unique ways, this is going to deliver. Now, I really want to see a behind the scenes video of the making of this movie. First, to see how they accomplished the one shot, but then also just to see how real some of the situations and locations actually were compared to how they appear in the movie. Now, the scene on the high rise that I had mentioned earlier, it looks very real, but I'd also not be surprised if some of it was green screen, just simply out of safety for the actors. I do, though, appreciate the level of realism that the movie's able to convey. I couldn't tell any situations that were not real locations, so the illusion and the escapism were able to remain intact. Now, something I found pretty funny is that one of the kids in the family Rake goes to save looks just like a young Pete Davidson. If you were to cut his hair short and make him a little bit taller, I bet he could pass as a lookalike, or at least a sibling. And yeah, I do know that this has zero to do with anything, but it made me chuckle, so there you go. Overall, I think you go into a movie like this because you're interested in big action and exciting thrills. Extraction 2 delivers on the white-knuckle suspense and frenzied chaos audiences expect. Hemsworth may be stoic in his mannerisms, but he's explosive with his fighting, delivering an adrenaline-fueled good time. And while the story is basic and simple, the fight choreography, camera work, and stunts are phenomenal, leading to a ferociously gripping watch. There's no sex or nudity, a lot of profanity, and almost non-stop brutal violence. I give Extraction 2 4 out of 5 couches. So, besides the John Wick films, what is a crazy action movie that you love to watch? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.